Okay, it's Luke here from KINARM again. Going to try and explain how to replace the hydraulics on your EXO chair. So similar to the last time, you've taken the seat off. Make sure you don't swivel the robots all the way to the back, because once you take the seat off and the hydraulics off, there's going to be a significant bias if you move those arms back, where the chair could actually flip over. So that's a big safety note just to pay attention to. So again, take most of the accessories off the chair. It makes the chair frame lighter. So that's the armrests and the footrests. And then similar to the last time, you're going to get underneath and you're going to remove the 4 bolts. And then the chair seat will lift off. For your chair, we've included the new style bracket. So we're going to be replacing that bracket. It's going to go on that side there. So we will, once the chair seat's off, we will take these end caps off so that we can slide in a new T, so we can upgrade the bracket to the more secure bracket. Piece to the new style, you're going to have to add another T-nut, that black piece on top of there, into this slot. So in order to get that in there, you need to take this end cap off. Sometimes you can get the end cap off without removing the footrest because of this slot. Sometimes things are a little bit tight and you have to take this off, which would be that back screw there, and you can loosen that a little bit, it would pull out. And then you can take these 2 screws out. So this is a 3/32. Know that these screws, sometimes they just tighten up. That's the nature of conical screws, so hopefully they pop loose for you. You can pop this end cap off, and then you can slide just the T-nut into that slot there. And so that when you reassemble this, you then have the 2 bolts that you can bolt to that side rail. Okay, now that I have the seat off, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to replace this bracket now so that we have the right width set. It'll make sense as you proceed, but these little blocks can be positioned horizontally. So right now these are set to the correct distance. So we're going to replace these brackets so that this assembly is going to be set to the correct width. Another little side note, this job is going to require you to be on your knees a lot, so I suggest you have something to kneel on. Makes the job a lot more friendlier to do. Okay, so you can see I got this bracket replaced. This was a 3/16 Allen key, by the way. And then you're going to have to swap these back screws out as well. And those are 5/32. So when you're putting it back together, I set this to approximately 5 degrees off, or 85 degrees from the chair seat to there. It just has to be approximate. Tighten up this guy. Doesn't be super tight, but tighten that up. I put 1 screw in there. You can put both in if you like. And then the other side is floating loose a little bit. So you're going to pinch it a little bit, and that will set it to the same angle as this one. And then while you're holding it pinched, you can tighten this screw. And then that should keep everything to the same width. And once you do that, put all the screws in and tighten everything up. Once you have the new brackets on, you can then remove this entire assembly by taking out these blue bolts here. Because the hydraulic cylinder can spin, including the top nut here, I have this little homemade wrench that actually fits on the flats of that top nut. And so if you put that on, you can hold that while you loosen this bolt. So, and then this comes off. Okay, we're going to remove these brackets. We're going to take out these blue bolts. Note that these are metric. Takes a 6 mil hex key. And my little homemade wrench that goes on these flats at the top there that allows you to loosen. So do that on each side. Okay, once you have all the brackets off the hydraulics and everything removed, this is the sort of bit of a pain part, is to take off the hydraulics. You're going to have to take off the pump. There's a controller up there, and then there's the 4 hydraulic cylinders. So I'm not going to demo this step entirely, so please follow the instructions that were written and listen to a little bit of the summary. So it's going to be these 4 bolts, and there's 4 per hydraulic cylinder. Note that the back ones on the side, because this part's wider, has longer bolts, so the bottom 2 bolts are the longer bolts. So you're going to take out those bolts. While doing so, try not to pinch these lines. As you can see, there's lots of zip ties and everything else holding those lines up off the ground in a manner so that they don't get damaged. That is really one of the trickiest parts, is managing those brown hydraulic lines. They like to uncoil and coil in weird ways. That is also probably going to be your most frustrating part when reinstalling. You have to do all this while those lines are attached to the pump. So hopefully that all makes sense. You can see how I did it back there. If you're looking, that the 2 lines coming off the left go towards the left 2 cylinders, and the 2 lines coming off the right go towards the right 2 cylinders. And it's just a matter of trying to keep them coiled up and keep zip ties. Sometimes I use garbage twist ties temporarily while I'm setting it up. Taking it off, obviously not as critical because you're just getting it out of the way. So that is what you're going to attempt to do. I will make another video or another short clip here explaining how to put it back on. The pump and the controller has 2 screws. This has 4, and they're 1/8 Allen key. Usually easier with a T-handle. And again, this isn't easy because you're working on your back, and holding this in place and lined up sometimes requires 2 people so that it's not left hanging off of 1 screw. So I generally get 2 or 3 screws in loosely, so that it's just sitting there loosely in place, and I wait till the job is done before tightening everything up. When you're setting up the new hydraulics, a little tool that I use just to check the spacing is this guy here. So the 2 outside holes are what you use for the back one, and they should go over the hydraulics. Now if you let it, you can intentionally bind it, but if you keep it flat, I'm doing this one-handed, but it kind of just slides down freely, and then you can slide it up freely, and that tells me that the center to center distance of those are set relatively close, but more importantly that they're parallel to each other. And likewise at the front, except you use the inner hole, and you can see that I mean, you can bind it. You got to kind of keep it a little bit flat. It's just as a little bit of a sanity check that slides down all the way. Again, I'm doing this one-handed. It's much easier if I had both my hands, and that's just telling me that the cylinders are parallel to each other, so that when they're all tied together, they're moving up parallel together. Okay, so when you're reinstalling the hydraulics, assuming you have all these ones off, you're going to have this side panel off as well. You're going to put the hydraulics loosely in place while trying to do that hydraulic line management. And as you can see, there's 2 coils there on the left that are just zip tied to the side of the extrusion, and as well as on the right. So obviously you will have seen this because you would have taken yours off. So that's what you're trying to replicate when you put these back on. So once you get everything bolted on and zip tied up in place, the new pump on, the new controller on, and there are the wires on the controller. It should be common sense that there's two plugins on that controller. I'll send a picture of that. And everything connected. It's really just a matter of checking the alignment of these. And I explained that earlier with this tool. Just ensuring that it drops down. If this is not dropping down as easy as that, it's possible that something has moved, hopefully not, but a lot of times you can, by loosening these screws, you can rotate this cylinder a little bit, one way or the other, to try and make it so that these are parallel. I sometimes use, it's hard when this is here, so, but you can sometimes use a little bit of a square as a reference. But again, it's difficult because this panel is in the way. So a lot of times I just do it by visually, oh, this has got to go this way a little bit, or that's got to go that way a little bit, until this is dropping down nicely. Similarly to the back ones, if this isn't dropping down, I have those on, so I can't do it. But if that wasn't dropping down nicely, unfortunately the back ones, they adjust front to back by loosening those screws. So in order to adjust side to side, is sometimes you have to cut little pieces of paper, or you have these little metal shim stocks. I'll send you a little bit, and you can put the shim in between where the cylinder mounts to the frame. Now that would be on the back one, so that would be down in there. And that can then cause the cylinder to tip one way or the other, or to space it out or in a little bit. If when you dismantle yours, if there was no spacers, chances are you won't need any spacers. If there was little spacers that fell out, kind of make a mental note of where they were and put them back in the same place. It's really, this is just, it's a little bit of a game, and just to get these so that they are all roughly parallel to each other. So when they go up and down, they're not opposing each other with force. So that's the overall objective when you're resetting up those cylinders. Once you get the cylinders all mounted and you're happy with everything being parallel, you can then start the reassembly process. One step you might want to do before reassembling is, if you do lower the cylinders at this point, it's always best to have them all the way up, I find, when I'm working. If you lower them and just do that push test, just to make sure everything looks like it's going down and that they're pushing down with about the same amount of force. That is one sanity check you can do now before reassembling everything. But from there, just follow the reassembly steps. This is the assembly that we built earlier, and the reason we took that step to do it earlier is because now we know this is set to the right width. It's actually going to go that way. So that I can basically just put those bolts back in and tighten them up, and I know that this was set to the right width as the chair frame because we built this before we removed those blue bolts. When you're reinstalling these brackets, it's important to know that this screw will become inaccessible once you put the chair seat back on. So we really need to control the width between this surface and this surface, or more importantly, I guess, the outside surface to the outside surface. These are built with a little bit of play so that that width can be set so that it matches the chair seat. So what I do to set this up is I put these on loosely, as you can see. So there's some wiggle room, and then there's going to be a bar that's going to go between here where you can tighten up some screws, and that's going to set the width. Once you have that bar in place, you can then tighten these screws up to secure the proper width. So you can see I have this bar installed. This is what I call the EXO Hydraulic Chair Spacer. So there's just a screw on the end there. On that side, these are 3/16. I just tighten it up. So now that has set the width. So then what I'm going to do is, this still has some play in it. They can move together. So I just kind of get it centered in that range. And then I tighten up these blue screws. So do these blue screws pretty tight because they're inaccessible once you get the chair seat on. And once again, these are 6mm hex. Okay, so just some final tips and tricks. As you can see, I got our chair mostly back together. I did not take my hydraulics off. That will be your most difficult part of it, and a lot of it is just the management of those hydraulic lines and keeping them coiled and keeping them neat and not pinching them. So just that once you get that part done, the rest should go fairly smoothly. Again, I had this nice kneeling pad for the work. You may want something similar. It's a lot of groundwork. When I typically install the hydraulics, I have this up on a workbench, so I'm not crawling around on my hands and knees. Again, big safety reminder, do not swivel those arms back when you have everything apart, because it will flip back on you very fast. When you do get everything back together, like when you take it apart, it's nice to have the chair up, it gives you lots of room. Keep in mind you will have these replaced with the new style. So, and again, it's approximately 5 degrees, sort of off 90 here. But the main thing is that when these go down, they just fit through that hole. Otherwise, you can angle this a little bit. The new style is a little more easy because it tends to be with the two screw holes. It keeps it at the right angle, which is basically this being parallel to that. Once you get this back on, you can keep these bolts a little bit loose, and the whole chair, you can see I just slid the whole chair. Again, hard to do with one hand, but here we go. Oh. Anyways, the whole chair will slide back and forth just like that a little bit, and set that distance that we gave you in the specs. Tighten everything back up, and you should be good to go. As with anything, if you have questions before you start, or if you're not confident in doing the job, then don't. Or ask those questions before you start. Also be sure to let us know if you'd like one of us to be on standby while you do the repair, and we may be able to help if you run into issues while you're doing it. These are some of the items you're going to get to support you. So you're going to get your new brackets with the new T-block. You're going to get a spacer for setting the width of the back. You're going to get this little tool I use for checking the parallelness of the cylinders. My little custom wrench, a little bit of shim stock. Hopefully you don't need it, but you never know. And then some of the tools hopefully you might have is you have some decent hex keys, possibly a square, although the way you're doing the repair, that's actually difficult to use, but could be handy. And then you're going to want some T-handles as well. Those are a little easier, I find, especially for taking off the pump and the motor controller.